Hello friends, welcome back again to Game Brigade. My name is Brian Greer and today we're going to be doing a full first impressions review for Disrupt that is on Kickstarter. So if you're looking for my in-depth thought analysis regarding this economic Euro worker placement game, this video will be for you. Please stay tuned for that. Okay, so we're going to be diving into Disrupt. I do want to say, just as disclosure though, Triple Meeple did sponsor my channel to feature their game on my channel, so please take account of that. I'm still going to give you my the cat is saying hello. I'm still going to give you my full analysis on this project though, so you guys can make the best backing decisions going forward. So what is Disrupt? Well, Disrupt is an economic game where you are going to be trying to purchase shares of mostly tech-based industry, or you're going to be developing your projects and attempting to make them the most successful. So there are a lot of moving components in this game, and I'm going to try my best to explain what each one is, but be forewarned that the rulebook that I was provided is a prototype rulebook. This is a prototype game that I have in front of me. And the rulebook at times was very hard for me to fully understand and to succinct what things meant or the interpretations of what they are. So I'm going to give you my best hope in terms of relaying what I believe this game is. But if I'm incorrect, I'm sure the publisher will leave a comment in the description or in the comment section down below, or you can also check out the Kickstarter page for additional information. So with that, let's get to the board. So first off, this board is very hard, I think, to see what things are at first glance. You have to really kind of look at it and see where what things are, and I'll explain what they mean as we go through them. So first off, up here at the top is going to be the projects development area, where projects are going to be submitted for research and development and eventually marketing as they move through the timeline from the startup player. So let's back up. This game is fully asymmetrical. So there are 4 roles that are available in the game. You have the market leader, the business, the BPO, the angel investor, and the startup. Each one is trying to do something different within this game. And that's why I was saying it's such a complex mechanism, because they're all doing something different, but still very much intertwined with one another. And it's very, very interesting, and it's very well done in terms of the theme and the execution. So now let's go back to the project page. The startup player's goal is they're going to have 3 startup projects, and they're going to have shares of those projects. The shares at the end of the game are going to be worth money based on the value that the public and the amount of these cubes, effectively, if you want to break it down, the amount of cubes that are placed on these projects at the end of the game. Kira. She wants to be in the review. So go over here. So anyways, the project cubes that are here are going to dictate what is most successful. So the startup player is going to put the projects into the pipeline, and they are going to be moving across each round. And then you're going to have opportunities to place development cubes, research cubes, marketing cubes on them to try to make them become successful. At the end of the round, at the end of the game, all 3 of these will go through the timeline track and reach the end, where it'll be tied with the market leader's position over here. The market leader is the person who is already part of the market. These are the giants of industry, and they already have their projects to the public. So these are things that are known quantities, and they're going to try to increase their projects and sabotage the startups projects, as they don't want those projects to succeed. At the end of the game, there are going to be parameters that are going to reduce the startup's project's costs and make them worth less, or maybe even make them not succeed at all, make them fail their initial startup. And then the angel investor and the BPO player are kind of playing an interesting game of which one's going to be the most successful. Are the market leader stocks going to be the most successful? Are the startup stocks going to be the most successful? Who do we help? Who do we hinder? Or as like the angel investor, they want to own the stock. So they're going to try to hedge their bets and say, you know what, I think BoardTube is going to be the most successful. I'm going to try to get as much money out of hedging my bets there, while the BPO is going to try to increase the market value of those stats. So again, very hard. And I sat here for a very long time wondering, how do I explain this game? So hopefully you guys are following along. Leave a comment in the comment section down below if you have no idea what I'm talking about. Just say, Brian, I am lost. Anyways, let's keep going. Down here on the board is the actual main mechanisms of the game. It's the worker placement spots. So there are 4 locations in these 4 different spots. And when a player places their worker in a location, they take the top action, and then they will fall down, taking each additional action until they reach the bottom. If another player does the same thing and takes that same action row, they're going to stop just behind the player that's in front of them. So they are going to get a little bit of a worse action selection for that row, but still getting, a value of some sort. Now, there are limited spots, and each player has 3 workers, so these are going to fill up pretty quickly. But there are 2 additional slots that the angel investor and BPO can supply to get additional worker placement spots that are going to give incentives for people to take them, but also pay those 2 players, whoever places them, additional value. Down here, we have the brand identity. How well is your brand of the 4 different players received within the major audience? And I was kind of equating that to, like, you have Coke versus Pepsi, so I place myself as Coke way at the top and Pepsi way down here because I'm a Coke stan. But that's the kind of the value. We kind of joked when we were playing. We had one person who was way down here at the bottom. We had one person at the top, one person right below them, and someone kind of middling in between. And I was like, well, you are the great value, and this person is the true value. This person's the Kirkland brand, and just whatever. Like, they're a little bit better, but they're still not name brands as you move your way up. Still, by the way, I love all those brands, so don't worry if you also like those brands. I am definitely a store brand person. Anyways, this is kind of a tiebreaker based on the stock market, and this is what the stock market is going to be, which implies also with the social hype track. The social hype track is a track basically dictating what the what the world or your customers see your products right now. How hyped are they on the social networking programs? Because the more hyped your product is, the more valuable it is, the more likely it's going to get sold. And the way that works is obviously you have your board here, which has rows and columns based on each player with a value of how much you want to sell your specific stocks. So these are stocks owned by players that they're putting them up for auction. And then on each event, which is resolved at the end of each round, a card will be drawn telling players what's going to happen. So for example, this is virtual reality. In turn order, all players add a design cube to a project. A design cube is one of these colored cubes. I believe it's a blue one. You will then place it on one of the projects, any of the 6 projects, unless they're not on the field, because those projects come one at a time. And then it says buy BoardTube at its lowest price. So if BoardTube was not here, its lowest price would be 7 million. That'd be a very good purchase for the startup player. But because there's one sitting here at 4 million, that would get purchased. And then it says buy all shares at 4 million. So these 2 shares would get purchased. Buy 1 share at 5 million and buy 1 share at 6 million. And that would resolve this event. So players are going to try to figure out, what's the best way to place my shares based on the current social marketing, social page and whatnot. It's a very, very interesting mechanic. At the end of the game, let's keep going real quick. the final parts that I needed to finish up with is players are going to have a hand of cards that are the asymmetrical aspect based on each party or each faction. These cards are very much different to what that faction wants to do. The market leaders cards are very much take that mechanics. They're going to be targeting the other players, taking away their resources, harming their production and design cubes, making things hard, but it's going to be very difficult for them to increase their own design because these projects have already launched. So putting additional research or design into a project that's already been pushed to the public is a little bit more difficult. So that's why those cards are more difficult or harder to do. On the other hand, the startup card is all about putting tokens and resources on their projects that they're trying to push along this track. And the way they do that is they have these cards like that have these matching bars here. And when a card, when a project covers that pipeline of that same color, you then do whatever the ability says on this card, which could put different types of tokens on them, give them resources, give them abilities, things like that. So there are a bunch of different types of cards that they can place onto the board, eventually making it so that when these things trigger and come across, they're getting a bunch of different stuff. So for example, this one up here says they would gain it's leveraging, which means collect one of these resources based on where you're at or below. It's like a lesser value resource. Then you replace 2 marketing cubes. Those are the orange cubes. So I place 2 marketing cubes on Eternium rather. Then again, I do one of these, and then I put another marketing cube, and then I can change the social hype +1 or plus down. So I would say, you know what, Ethereum is going to go up 1. We're going to move board tube down, and that's it. And at the end of the round, this will move over here. Once your project is moved all the way over and you are no longer able to affect them, it's done. That is it for the most part. You have to have like an event or something that can adjust these. At the end of the game, players are going to flip over these tokens, and these are going to impact the 3 different projects that are the startups only. So these are additional things that are going to affect it. So and these 3 are placed by the startup player, so the startup player knows that things are going to affect it. But these are placed randomly. These are the market. So right now we have a bear market that's affecting Miniature Prime, which is a -2. And then we have a -1 up here, which is also Miniature Prime. It's a misprint. This is supposed to be board tube. This will all change the endgame scoring. And at that point, you compare the cubes of each type, and you will be gaining red cubes. I don't have the red cubes with me. But you'll be gaining cubes based on who has more of the orange cubes between the two, who has more of the blue cubes, who has more of the green cubes. And then if the cubes do not equal 10, the startup gets a bonus adding up the total of 10. So what I mean by that is, let's say Meeple Book here gets 4 cubes and Miniature Prime gets 5 cubes in terms of the addition here. Miniature Prime or board tube, whatever this one was, would get an additional. So I'm going to leave it at that. This is a very dense game, and it's very, very hard to explain it at a top level so that you guys can understand it. But what I want to do now is I want to dive into specific mechanics and things within this game and explain what I liked and didn't like so that way you guys can understand what my thoughts are when I played Disrupt. So the first thing I want to talk about is the quality of the decision-making parameters that you have in this game. When I first started playing, you didn't really know what was happening. You're just kind of doing things. You're just kind of playing it. But as you go through and things start kind of ticking along, I quickly realized that the quality of the decision-making parameters that you have are surprisingly deep. The fact that I played the BPO in my gameplays, and what my goal was, and I didn't understand this till too late, unfortunately, is that I need to pick a projects, that I want to make be successful and utilize the cards in my hand to do so. I have cards that can increase specific types of stats, but I have to trade in resources to do so. But I can increase development or research or marketing. I can remove social trolls marketing from another track. So if I feel like Dice Coin is getting too powerful, I can remove a marketing cube, although that's if you have multiple marketing cubes. You cannot remove the last cube of one of these projects from them. There are a lot of decision paths that you have to kind of check when you're going through. And it's not just from the card playing. It also goes into when do you purchase stocks, when do you place stocks up for trade, because at the end of the day, whoever has the most money is the winner. So you want to sell your stocks to get money. You need the money. You play your cards, it also gains you money. Things are also, everything's increasing your money, but sometimes you have to buy stocks as well. And when you buy stocks from your opponents, you're helping them win now. But you need to sometimes get those shares because they're going to be worth more potentially. That's the other thing. Sometimes these shares could be worth 2 million or 3 million at the end of the game, which is less than the minimum I could sell for. But many times we saw them worth 8 million, which is the max you could sell for, which doesn't happen very often. Selling for 8 million was not very common. So there was a lot of thought coming into the process of, okay, what is the best for me at this situation right now? And how can I fully capture this? Now, adding on to that though, and I have to give Meeple, Triple Meeple here a little bit of leeway with this, is that there was a lot of stumbling that we had within the iconography of the game, or lack thereof at times, the way the rulebook was written, the way some of the cards were written. It was hard for me to fully, truly feel like I understood this game at a mastery level where I felt like I could come in here and be like, this is exactly how you play this game. Although I do feel like at the end of my play sessions, I go, yeah, okay, I got this. Like I feel confident now, but it definitely should not have been as hard as it was to get to that point. So what do I mean by that? Well, up here at the top, we have these pipelines, project lines. I don't know. They definitely need some more iconography to indicate what each one is called on the board potentially. If this is development, maybe put development behind the line so we understand that that's development. Because there's going to be cards that come up and they'll say place buy all shares from all the projects tied for the most development cubes. Well, is the blue development? Is the gray development? I know yellow is marketing. Or is it all development? So that came up a few times. We're like, no, this is development or this is development. And if you don't have the rule book on hand, that's never what you want to be doing. Is I don't want to be pulling the rule book out and looking while I'm playing. So the iconography needs to be a little bit better, that I can look at this and know exactly when I draw this card what I need to do at that exact moment. So that was a little bit of a disappointment there. Overall, though, the layout, everything works very well. So don't get me wrong in the sense that I didn't think this board layout worked. I just felt like there was things in the cards in your hand, and in the terms of the overall that made it more difficult to really see the enrichment after a while. Or in the beginning, I should say that. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is the take that mechanics that I found. You can see on BGG in the description. And then, of course, when you're playing the game, they will be prominent. I am not a fan of take that in the most part. I think a lot of times it can ruin a game experience and make it not fun. But I want to give a little bit of defense to Disrupt, because I thought the take that mechanics, when they were first played on us, were like, that is rude, and that was very, very powerful. Makes sense within the theme of the game. And then also the way that the cards are costed for the market leader, because that's the only player that really can do take that, makes it so that they aren't something they can do all the time, and they have to be done at certain times. So I'm going to go from that though and just talk about the card clarity and the card use. I love the fact that all of these cards do something a little bit better and impact things a little bit. So for example, we talked about this development track, and I talked about the market leader here is to harm the tracks. Well, the market leader can play a card in that development track as well, locking it up, potentially blocking future development tracks for the other projects. But this one specifically says that it's going to force the people to lose money, whoever has the share that's coming across. So if we had Ethereum, if the Ethereum was up here, for example, anyone who owned Ethereum would have to pay a million or lose $1 million for owning that share because the hackers have gone in and disrupted the system. I love that development play and the aspect in this game. I thought that was really cool. But I wanted to make sure I talked about the take that mechanics because it was one of the things that one of my friends brought up immediately when we sat down to play the game. He goes, "Oh, it's take that mechanics. I'm not really sure about that." I'm like, "Yeah, we'll see. You know, you never know until we play." But I was very pleasantly surprised. Other than that, all the 4 decks are very, very good in terms of really bringing to life the way that faction or character, however you want to describe them, wants to play. The final thing, and I've already touched on this a little bit, because this is the first impressions, I haven't got enough plays in it to really give as much work, and I also got this late, so I wasn't able to get as many plays as I would like to have gotten in. But this also is for the publishers, I know the publishers are watching, but I felt like the rulebook and a lot of the cards still needed a lot of work in terms of just clarity and figuring things out. The words in the game don't succinct very well. So for example, there was a card that says, I wish I had it. I should have had it as an example immediately, but it says, place a markets cube on a project. And then another card will say, place a marketing cube. Now, are those the same? Are they different? I don't know. You have to make sure everything is very, very clear for the users as we're playing. Another example is one of the BPO cards. This foreclosure card says, select a share another player owns and auction it, starting at $1 million. It doesn't say who gets the $1 million. You're grabbing someone else's player. You get $5 million for playing this as the market leader. You gain $5 million just for playing this card. But are you also going to take someone else's share and auction it and gain money for that share? And then on top of that, are these cards available for you to steal? Are these owned? Are these available? Like, let's say I've placed all my shares into the market for sale. Can a card like this take one for sale? And there's other cards like the Angel Investor, which says buy one. Let's see here. Select up to one. Here it is. Select up to 1 share per player and buy each one for $3 million. But let's say I have all of my shares on the market already. I don't know. There's things that we experienced that were just like, we just had to kind of, make a decision on our own and go from it. So I understand it's a prototype. I've done plenty of prototype coverage in the past, and I want to give you the level of satisfaction to say that there is a very good game under this, but I do think they need some work. I think Disrupt needs a little bit of work to fully flesh out what I think could be a great experience. So I'm going to leave that with my final thoughts. Disrupt is a very good themed game around the world of tech industry, stock markets, and development of projects and ideas. As you push something through development, as you're fighting other market leaders, you're fighting the social track for people and how they respond. It's very, very well and smart. It's very smart in the way it does that. I give it mad props. I think there should be a little bit more cleanup that could happen here, and there's plenty of time after development, after Kickstarter, to do those things. I hope that they do, because this game could be a good contender for a top 10 game, top 20 game in 2024, whenever this would release. But I do want to urge people to be aware that my initial impressions with this one were shaky at times, just because of all of the roadblocks that I hit along the way. So my name is Brian. I hope you guys appreciate this video as I have given you my thoughts regarding this game, Disrupt. Thank you again for watching. I will talk to you very soon. Bye-bye.